The topic of this week's discussion is the printing press. We see the printing press every day. We see it along the billboards that we see on our drive to school, on the speed limit signs we see. A lot of these are mass produced. Even our textbook is a part of the printing press. The publisher that made this textbook made hundreds, if not thousands, of these books to be sold to students. Although it seems expensive to us, the texts are relatively inexpensive if you compare it to the way books were made hundreds of years ago. Back then, you'd have to have a scribe to sit down and transcribe one book into another. This process was very lengthy. Sometimes it took 3 to 5 years, maybe even longer, depending on how complex and how long the text was, because a lot of these books had very ornate and intricate designs and patterns in them. And in order to be able to afford these expensive works, you had to be part of an elite economic class or belong to some sort of religious order. But this all changed with the invention of the printing press. Johannes Gutenberg invented it in Germany, and he changed everything. Initially, the printing press was still relatively expensive because it was in its infancy, and the works that he printed were still in Latin. But throughout time, the printing press grew, and the works were translated into everyday languages such as German, English, French, and everyone was able to understand those languages, so literacy rates increased throughout Europe. And some scholars say that the literacy rate increasing was what was able to give us the modern day middle class, because before then you either were rich and wealthy and able to afford education, or you were sent off to some form of a religion institution to be educated. But now everything changed. Now the poor were literate, and they were able to decide for themselves. They were able to make decisions and know if something was or wasn't in their best interest. And this topic of the middle class brings us to another point that I saw in the textbook. I noticed that there was a painting by Esther Hernandez that is named Sun Mad, and she's part of the middle class in America, and she made some political paintings. Let me show you the painting that was in our text. As you can see, it looks like a box of raisins. And if you sit down and read what the painting says, it says, "Sun Mad raisins, unnaturally grown with insecticides, miticides, herbicides, and fungicides." And if you want to look at this painting, it's on page 141. But this painting, she made it because she was fighting for the rights of some of the Chicano Americans and immigrants of the Southwest, because these people they're poor and they're working under very difficult conditions. And this painting kind of brings to attention that the exploitation of a lot of unfortunate people. So this painting, it caught my eye, because when you look at it, the girl in the painting is a skull. So it shows that all these chemicals that were mentioned on the painting, are killing people along with genetic defects, and it's being ignored by the government. This was also before there was regulations. Nowadays it's a little better, I would say, but at least we know about it now, and people were able to decide whether they want to support it or not by purchasing organic produce or not.